Hello, everybody. I am Stardust the New Differ. Somebody gave me the idea for this, which I am very grateful for. So I have them linked inside of the comments. If you'd like to check out any of their stuff, go ahead and check it out and everything like that. But, you know, without a further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Izuku lays in bed as rain taps over the cracked windows of his dimly lit apartment. A flickering bulb, slowly illuminating the room, but also dimming it every so often. Izuku looks as he notices multiple bills on his side, as he puts his hand over his face and reluctantly checks them. He sees multiple different bills, medical bills, overdue notices, and a envelope that says final warning. He's way thinner than he should be, pale, tired, as when he looks at this, he reluctantly opens it and looks to see what's inside. As he looks to see what's inside, he sees a notice that's telling him that if he does not pay his rent, then he will be kicked out and evicted. Izuku's been trying to lay off on paying the rent for a little while because he has his last bit of money and everything like that, and he's been trying to save it until he needs it at the very moment they ask for it before eviction, especially because the money that he's been getting from the settlement has been slowly running out. He coughs inside of his sleeve, as when he does, he kind of looks as he sees a little bit of blood inside of his sleeve, as he frowns and says, "Looks like I'm getting sick again." Izuku wasn't sickly because he was weak. He's sickly because his life never went the right way. A long time ago, Inko was inside of a very serious car accident. It was involving a semi truck that was owned by this other company. The accident was the company's fault rather than Inko's. So, because of this, she got a huge settlement. Well, more like a sum of money for them to not get sued by her. This accident was so serious that, to a certain extent, it hospitalized Inko. It wasn't serious at first until her body began healing itself naturally over time. Because of this and her being inside of a weak state, she eventually got sick because her immune system was very weak. For the past couple of months, she's been more or less inside of the hospital trying to survive, but also trying to take care of and provide for Izuku. But she can barely even do that, especially because she hasn't been able to get out of bed for the last few weeks. Izuku's been trying his best to survive for himself, not complain, not tell her how bad things have gotten, but they've gotten pretty bad to say the least. Izuku eventually closes up the envelope as he sighs, as he says, "Another day to survive." He goes ahead as he walks over to the mini safe inside of his room and opens it, as he sees the last wad of cash from the settlement. Enough to survive, but not enough to live off of. As Izuku looks at his phone and a hospital notification pops up, as he sees something that says incoming message. Hospital stay extension required. As he reads into it, he notices that if he doesn't pay the bill, they're going to kick Inko out. and essentially put her on the street to fend for herself while she's as sick as she is. Izuku closes his eyes bitterly as he lets out a bitter laugh as a single tear falls down his face. As he wipes the tears from his face, but goes ahead and packs everything up and starts his day. As he goes ahead and checks on Inko, he hears beeping machines. So he opens up the curtain as he sees her laying in bed. As Inko, kind of looks at Izuku as she says, Izuku, you know you don't have to stay every night. So he kind of looks at her. So he gives, a soft smile as he says, I know I don't have to stay. I want to. I want to make sure you're okay. As, she kind of reaches out for Izuku's hand and everything. As she says, you can't spend every day trying to take care of me. You still have to make it to school and everything like that. You have to make sure that you can make it. So if they do kick me out and I do have to fend for myself, you'll be able to survive. As, Izuku kind of clutches her hand as she says, just make sure you at least try to protect yourself over anything, okay? As, he kind of nods. As when he nods and everything like that, she kind of lets go as she says, why don't you go ahead and head back home? I'll be fine. As, he kind of nods as he lets go and he gives her a kiss on the cheek and goes to head back home. As Izuku stands inside of a narrow alley at a convenience store, he pulls out a coin from his pocket and tosses it into the air. For a brief moment, the coin glows faintly, vibrating. Izuku flicks his finger and the coin slams into the dumpster, exploding into harmless sparks and metal fragments. No heat, no fire, just a release of kinetic force. Izuku's quirk was simple and terrifying. He could charge objects with stored kinetic energy on contact. They could explode, disintegrate, or release a force in precise and controlled bursts. At a distance, it was subtle, harder to detect. Up close, it was devastating, but the quirk didn't necessarily make heroes. They made people nervous. People realized what Izuku could do with his quirk. One day where he was just not feeling all right, he could blow someone's head off without ever lifting a finger. He could charge up a playing card and throw it at someone, have it cut straight through them, or have it explode upon them and blow them into pieces. One bad day and he could end someone's life. Izuku knows it's not fair for people to think like that, but he can't change their mind. So he doesn't work to. Izuku continues to walk as he eventually gets to an ATM as he inserts one of Inko's cards and puts in the pin. As when he goes to the ATM and puts in the pin and everything, he sees a sign that says insufficient funds when he goes to withdraw $500. That's not correct. I should still have 300. As, he checks his account and everything like that. As when he checks it, he does have 300 inside the bank. As when he's, putting in the code again, he's, taking out the card, putting it back in, trying over and over and over and over. As eventually, when he calls up his bank and everything like that, They tell Izuku that they're putting a hold on his account for now because of technical errors, and that it should be up within the next week. As Izuku's kind of on the phone as he's like, I can't wait a week. They're letting her go in the next 5 or 4 days. Can you get it to me sooner? Like, lend me something, make a loan? As the lady on the phone kind of says, I'm sorry to break this to you, but you're not 18 years old or older, and nor are you the card holder for this account. We can't have you making any type of loans on this account without you being of age, and also without you being the account holder in the first place. Even if you were old enough, we still couldn't let you do it. As Izuku kind of lets off a hollow laugh as he says, okay, thank you anyway, I guess. As he goes ahead and hangs up the phone. The checks were running out. The medicine was expensive, and Heroes didn't pay rent. Izuku had a chance, or at least he thought he did at one point in time. Maybe he waited a little too late. Maybe if he would have tried a little earlier and tried to pay it off sooner, except for being cheap, maybe he wouldn't be losing the house. As Izuku thinks of all of this, he kind of leans against the wall as he starts laughing. As his laugh begins to turn into broken, soft cries as he slowly falls down the wall onto the floor. So he kind of crawls into a ball. As while Izuku's crying and everything like that, right? He kind of hears soft walking from the night streets. Neon lights, crowds, people bumping into him, looking at him, but not offering any help or even checking twice on him. As while he's just kind of sitting there inside of his own self-pity, someone clips over him as he hears, "Watch it, kid." As he looks up, as when he looks up, he sees a person standing over him. As Azuka looks at him as he says, "You were the one that ran into me." As he sees the dude go ahead and turn around as he says, "Well, I was the one that said, watch it. I don't care if I ran into you. You shouldn't be standing or sitting in the middle of the street crying. If you're going to go ahead and cry, go back home." As Izuku kind of, gets up as he says, "You don't have to be a dick. You could have just said, hey, could you maybe not sit there, or something simple. Why are you trying to pick a fight with me?" As the other guy kind of looks at him as he says, "Because I want to." As he kind of looks at Izuku as he says, what are you crying about anyway?" As Izuku kind of looks at him as he says, "None of that matters anyway. You wouldn't care in the first place." As the dude kind of just looks at Izuku. He looks back at the other guys. As he just simply punches Izuku in the face. As Izuku falls to the ground. As he quickly gets up. As he says, "What the hell was that about?" As he says, "I asked you a damn question. I asked you what you were crying about, and you answered with, you wouldn't care anyway. If I didn't care, I wouldn't have asked the question." As Izuku kind of grits his teeth as he goes to punch the other guy, as he kind of dodges out of the way and knees him in the stomach. As Izuku falls to the ground, as he's kind of clutching his stomach and everything, as he says, "And you don't even know how to fight. Why are you trying to punch me?" As Izuku kind of, lifts his head and looks over at him inside of anger, she goes ahead and grabs a rock. As the rock starts to glow purple and starts to slowly vibrate. As while it does that, the dude kind of just looks at Izuku in confusion as Izuku flings the rock at him. He barely dodges it as the rock blows up and knocks off a piece of a street sign. As the dude kind of laughs a little as he says, "You got a quirk? You didn't look like the type to have a quirk like that." As Izuku wipes the little bit of blood off of his nose as he says, "Yeah, I do. Why does it matter?" As he says, "Well, I might have a job for you." As Izuku says, a job? He nods as he says, "Yeah, a job." As Izuku says, "And what makes you think I need a job, especially from someone like you?" As the dude looks at Izuku as he says, "Well, making money never hurts, right?" As Izuku goes to almost deny him, but he thinks about it. As he kind of thinks about how he's low on money. Whatever this dude's offering, it could help him in his situation, especially if he's making enough to take care of his mom. He makes a vow to himself. If it's anything shady, anything that involves killing people or hurting people, then he won't accept. But if it's anything else, he'll do what he has to do to get the money to his mom and take care of his people. As the dude kind of, smiles as he says, "Come on, I'll take you to a ramen shop to go and discuss the situation." As everybody around him kind of, says some slight stuff as they're like, "Really? You're inviting this kid to the job?" As he kind of nods with his head over. As while he's, while he's kind of motioning, he eventually walks off. As Izuku reluctantly gets up and starts walking behind him. Skip over to a small ramen shop. Izuku eats fast, almost like an animal, as the dude kind of, looks at Izuku as he kind of laughs as he says, "You sure do look hungry. When's the last time you ate?" As Izuku looks at him as he says, "3 days ago." My bad. The video turned off. But nah, slurping the ramen broth as he kind of looks at him as he says, "My name's Circle. What about you?" As Izuku kind of looks up at him as he stops eating for a couple of seconds as he says, "What type of name is Circle?" As he kind of looks at him as he says, "The name that my mother gave me. Now my name's Circle. Who are you?" As Izuku kind of, flinches a little as he's like, "Oh, my name's Izuku Midoriya." So he kind of offers his hand and Circle shakes Izuku's hand. As he says, "Well, it's obvious that you're struggling in some way, shape, or form. So I have an offer from you, or for you." As Izuku looks at him as he says, "Yeah, you said that already." So he says, "Okay, I'm going to specify then. You can sit around waiting for things to get worse, or you can help yourself. Small stuff, pickpocketing, distractions, nothing violent." As Izuku looks up at him as he kind of wipes his mouth with his sleeve as he says, I, I, I'm not, I'm not a criminal." As Izuku kind of, or not Izuku, Circle kind of leans in as he says, "And neither am I. I'm just a person that looks for opportunities to make money. Look, Izuku, right? That was your name? You're already poor as is. Whatever crimes that you commit, it's a punishment to the world. Think of it like that. Can help out whoever you have at home, or maybe even yourself if you don't have anybody. They're good skills to have. Whether people admit that or not is honestly their personal decision. But think about it. Whoever or whatever you need money for, you can finally take care of that person or thing or reach that goal. You could finally be able to take care of yourself. You'd never have to worry about going 3, 4, maybe even 5 days without eating ever again. You'll be able to manage by yourself and not have to rely off of someone. As Izuku looks down at his hands, as they slowly shake, as he kind of clutches his fingers, trying to get himself to stop shaking, as he says, I mean, as Circle interrupts him, as he says, so is it a yes or a no? So Izuku finds himself at a quiet electric store at night. Izuku kind of slipped into Circle's crew and everything like that. He's dressed inside of black clothing, trying to somewhat blend in. His heart's pounding, his senses on end, on full alert, but he tries his best. As he kind of looks at Circle, as Circle nods. As when Circle nods, Izuku begins to walk out of the alleyway, as they walk out of the alleyway too inside of different directions. As Izuku walks past the security door, his finger slightly brushing against the security sensor, charging it just enough to let off a delayed pulse. The alarm glitches, and they then proceed to laser through the door with one of Circle's goons' abilities, as they bust through and they move fast inside of the building. But then, as they begin to run in, a guard turns the corner, a little too close. Izuku panics and grabs a coin as he presses it into the wall beside the guard as he detonates it. The guard is thrown back, slamming into the guard. God dang, sorry, my bad. The guard is thrown back as he slams into the shelves, and he doesn't move. As Izuku kind of, tries to shake him awake and everything like that. As Circle looks at him as he says, what the hell did you do? As Izuku kind of looks at him as he says he was about to turn the corner. I thought as Circle kind of looks at him as he says, you don't think anything. Killing someone is a no-no. Killing someone can get us arrested. Killing someone can get heroes on our ass. Doing small things like this, small heists, nobody ever thinks about it. And if a hero does come, it's always some C-rank hero. But someone as big as All Might could potentially be coming after us. As Izuku kind of, looks at him as he says, I don't know how to check someone's pulse. As he kind of sees one of Circle's people walk over, a girl, as she kind of checks his pulse. As she looks at Izuku as she says, you really did a number on him. As Circle says, okay, let's just hurry this up. As they go ahead, they take all of the equipment and everything like that, as they head out as quickly as they headed in. As when they finally get outside, breathing hard and everything, Circle walks out as he says, you know what? That's it. I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. As Azuku kind of, looks at him as he says, I, what do you mean that's it? You can't just stop. As Circle looks at him as he says, you almost killed that guy. If he would have died, Heroes would have been on our ass. We could have gone to prison for the rest of our life. I'm talking about the big leagues, and not in the good way. As Azuku kind of looks at him, as he kind of says, I mean, I know, but it was one mistake. He didn't even die. As the one girl that checked his pulse kind of says, he could have. That could have gone bad very quickly. As Azuku kind of just looks at him as he says, look, Circle, I promise this will never happen again. Next time, if there is a next time, I'll make sure not to be as jittery and I'll do better. I promise, just give me one last chance. As everybody just kind of looks over at Circle, as he just stands there for a moment, as he thinks to himself, as he says, you know what? Fine. We're going to sell the check. We're going to sell the check. We're going to sell the tech. I apologize. And we're going to get this all over with. I'll call you tomorrow and tell you if we're still doing this. At least if we're still doing this with you. As Azuku kind of, nods and everything. As they all go ahead and head out. By the morning, Azuku wakes up as he's wondering to himself if it was all a dream. So he looks down at himself and notices he's still inside of those clothes, confirming it was definitely not a dream. As the morning light begins to brush through the curtains, Azuku fully lifts himself up and goes ahead to get up and go to the hospital to check on Inko. As when he gets up and everything, he goes ahead and gets himself dressed. As he walks out of the house and everything. But when he walks out of the house, he looks at his mailboxes. He could have sworn that he left it open, which was probably dumb. Somebody could have just closed it for him, but he goes ahead and checks inside. As he checks inside, he sees over $1,500 inside of one packet, and $3,000 inside of another. As when he checks inside of it, it has a note that says from Circle. As Azuku smiles as he laughs a little, as he says, there's no way this could, as he kind of just sighs to himself as he says, I really thought they were going to get away with the money. As he goes ahead and heads over to the hospital and everything. Inko slowly opens her eyes as she looks at Azuku, as Azuku's just standing over her, smiling. As it brings a smile onto her face to see him happy for once. As she says, what has you so happy? As Azuku, smiles as he closes his eyes, as he ponders to himself and thinks, as he says, an anonymous person paid for our hospital stay to be extended. As Inko looks at him as she says, are you being serious right now? As he looks at her as he nods, as he says, yeah, they paid for everything. They said everything will be okay. As she kind of laughs a little, as, tears fill her eyes, as she kind of hugs him. As she kind of pulls back, as she says, so what about the house? As Azuku looks at her as he kind of says, we have the house too. That same buyer was able to pay for everything. As Inko kind of, looks at him a little questionably onto why they would not only pay for their bills at their house, but also the hospital stay. But she decides to trust Izuku. He's not really the type of, boy to lie about stuff like that. So she decides to have faith in him. As while she's, doing all of that and everything, she kind of says, so how do you feel? How was yesterday? As Izuku looks at her, as in the final moment he says, everything was great. Okay, that's where I'm going to end this part off. If you guys enjoyed it, please hit the like button or subscribe. The Discord will be in the description and everything like that. And I hope you all have very wonderful days. And without me really saying much else, have a nice day. Goodbye.